I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have George Porchester, founder and CEO of LunaFi. George, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Great to be here. Cheers, Ashton.
Cheers. Let's dive straight into the world of decentralized betting, having gambling on the blockchain in a proper way, transparent, where people can get involved in both sides of the equation, unlike at the casino where the odds are stacked against you. Now let's dive right into that. I would love to kick off our conversation with a high-level overview to start of LunaFi and the solutions you're bringing through blockchain technology, and then we can dive into the details.
Yeah, thanks for that. So LunaFi is kind of my brainchild I came up with about 1.5 years ago after seeing a kind of non-custodial pools on Aave and Compound. And it's a decentralized sports bet and casino, which we understand that. But this time, it allows users to also become the house. So we've created 3 house pools initially in USDC, Bitcoin, and ETH. And LPs can deposit their tokens into these pools. And these act as liquidity for those who come to bet on the platform. LunaFi, just to be clear, is where you come and deposit liquidity to be the house. And Luna Bets will be our first sportsbook where you can, just as a normal user, you don't have to be a crypto native, right? A user can just connect using kind of Magic Link or Wallet Connects, MetaMask, and they can bet knowing that these pools of liquidity are there to pay them out. And a liquidity provider puts his money in because he knows that we put in an edge in the odds, right? A fair edge, right? Don't get me right. The odds will be good, but there's a fair edge because obviously we need a yield for the LPs to provide their liquidity. So yeah, that's the kind of the overall of the projects. The ecosystem kind of revolves around these house pools. There's the treasury contract's very important, which we can dive into a little bit later. But yeah.
Very cool. Thank you for that intro, George. Great explanation. And I would love to dive into that a little bit more in terms of the house pool, having the DeFi platform where anybody can become the house, but also people are able to bet. Now, I'm curious, with 2 sides of the equation, having the house coming from the funds from LunaFi and then people betting, the people that put their funds in as the house, they're earning some kind of liquidity provision percentage for interest as well, but they're also versing the odds of the players betting against them or with them, whether the players win or lose. How does that work?
Yeah, so like we kind of envisage eventually that people may well deposit in the house and also bet, which sounds counterintuitive, right? But a lot of people know that the house will win, but occasionally they might think, oh, do you know what? I reckon Chelsea's going to win on the weekend and have a punt on Chelsea. But over the long run, and you've got to remember, it's all about being patient here, is, you want to be in the house pool, not just for a day, for a week. You want to stay there for a month. And one of the things we've seen in DeFi right now is people can't get consistent returns in liquidity. In new projects, they've got great yields. No one knows what the risk is. And then after a couple of weeks, the APY dies. And so in this case, we've got organic APY, right? We know that if we attract betting customers because the odds are good, because their funds are secure, because they don't ever have to deposit their funds, it's all non-custodial, then we know that the liquidity providers are going to get action, right? So the pools take bets, and then when those bets settle, if the bet loses, they stay in the house pool. Now, 1.5% of the turnover does get claimable by the treasury wallet. Now, this is to cover the cost of the platform, and also because traditional gambling, 65%, 60% of gross profits do go towards costs, to paying bonuses, license fees. So we've got to pay for the platform. Yeah. But we feel that this will give a really decent yield for those who provide liquidity. And the more money that there is in the pool, the larger the bets we can take. And so it acts that we've got a mission program for LFI. So LFI is the native token of LunaFi. And these house pools don't just get given LFI. We target the liquidity we need for the users. So unlike most projects which are concerned about just growing a huge TVL, which eventually crashes, we go, right, what first week launch, we need $30 million in our pool or $20 million. So we'll give LFI rewards accordingly. And then we set those parameters so that, they're sustainable yields. I mean, that's the most important thing, I think, in DeFi. No one wants a 400% yield that dies in a week. Mm-hmm. You want a solid 20-30% yield, and this is single-side staking, right? Where are you getting a high reward in single-side staking right now? Mm-hmm. Especially which is bear market proof. I mean, obviously we want everyone to gamble responsibly, but gambling isn't really related to market conditions. People bet in recessions, people bet in boom times. Mm-hmm. So we want to say, we don't know what our yield will be because, as you know, the yield will be compared to what others are. So if no one else has got any yield in DeFi, we may find that we have a big TVL versus what you might not have if, say, Aave is also kicking off a 16% return. Uh-huh. But yeah, the ecosystem has been built to reward everyone who's part of it. So we use that 1.5%, to pay the LPs, to pay the bettors, because you want to incentivize people to bet. And yeah, we're very confident. I mean, we can talk a little bit about the IDO game that's coming up on the 1st of April.
Definitely.
We can talk about how we're making sure the odds are fair. The staking pool as well, that will be live on the IDO or the TGE on the 15th. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Okay, sounds great. And I would love to get a little bit more background in terms of, you mentioned betting on Chelsea there, George, and I know you're English. With the amount of different ways that you can bet, are you starting with, football and then expanding outwards, or, what is the scope of what you can bet on to start with LunaFi?
So one of the main reasons I started this project is that if you look at the competitors in the space, they've got terrible UX, no markets, and no liquidity. Mm. So when you ask that question, most people want to come up with some MVP with very few markets. We are going to have about 10,000 markets. So any market you find on Bet365, William Hill, Labrix, you'll find with us. Wow. That's the whole principle, is that if you can't have that, who's going to use your product who isn't in blockchain? Why are you going to go use a blockchain product where there aren't enough markets compared to what you can find? We want to offer a product that has the same user experience as a traditional bookmaker, but with the security of your funds. Mm. So, I mean, admittedly, we are really focusing on esports for the user experience, because obviously that's going to be a huge market. It already is a huge market. It's very tied with DeFi. Mm. We're going to have, but yeah, you name it, rugby, tennis, football, soccer, NFL. We're even going to, we'll have crypto markets as well. They're going to be a little bit more tricky to design because we are obviously on both sides. We have to ensure that those who provide liquidity are happy with the odds that we're setting. That's just as important as people who are betting. Mm-hmm. So we will provide, when it's possible, and these will be through Chainlink and verified oracles, the ability to bet on crypto markets. But right now, the tried and tested thing, what people really want to have a bet on, they want to have a bet on the game on the weekend, on their favorite tennis player, and they just want to get paid if they win, and that's what we're going to be focusing.
Very cool, and I like that approach, George. You really need to compete directly with the traditional betting platforms where they have so many markets, and yeah, to go big or go home.
Just as a fact, we think DeFi is big. It's got a $1.8 trillion market value. How much of that's actually in cash is probably a lot less. The betting market is estimated to have $1 trillion revenue each year. So it's a sizable market. It's a proven market. And I kind of see this as blockchain as a use case for something that is proven. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of these first aspects, as you say, with layer 2s, we are launching on Polygon. Mm-hmm. The main reason why is because the gas fees are obviously very cheap and it's EVM compatible. Mm-hmm. But Polygon is, it's a great chain. It's expanding. It's got a decent amount of liquidity on it. All sorts of third-party kind of payment providers like MoonPay integrate directly with Polygon because we want traditional customers. That's what we need. But ultimately, we can't be on any other layer 2s that people think are cheap. When you're doing 10,000 bets a day or 100,000 bets a day, 80 cents a transaction starts to add up. So we have to be with Polygon. We may even have our own side chain on Polygon eventually, because that's the use of blockchain. You know, you're going to need these side chains. You're going to, when you want to scale and you want 1 million customers having 100,000 bets a day, even with Solana, it's not going to work. You know, you need your own independent blockchains. But initially, of course, we'll be focusing on being on Polygon, and you know, we're just keeping kind of an ear to the ground, seeing which other chain can start to compete. But happy with Polygon.
Definitely, and that's funny. You read my mind. I was just going to ask you about that. You know, considering it's a $1 trillion revenue per year or more, I know that a lot of that is like little players that have small amounts and people that just want to, you know, start betting really small and work their way up. And you really can't do that unless you have the right blockchain technology that allows for microtransactions. So that's great.
And we're actually paying for people's fees on bets to make it even easier, because you think, you know, if you really want to attract users who haven't used blockchain before, and they're going to start having to set the gas fees on MetaMask, which still are a little bit tricky because you don't know what the gas fees are. Yeah, we're going to be paying for them, so that's why we're going to be on Polygon. That's for sure.
Amazing. Now, you mentioned, you know, part of the next steps in the growth of the platform is this Crash IDO. Can you talk about what that is and what that means for the next stage of LunaFi? Yeah,
absolutely. So most of these launches, well, obviously we've got 2 launchpad providers, Starter and Lithium, and they're great. They've been seed investors from the beginning, getting the word out there, and you can sign up and whitelist and register with them. But we also thought, given we are starting a casino and a sportsbook, and we have the tech, why not create a really cool game for people to get a share of the private sale? Sorry, the public sale. So what you do is you deposit ETH into the smart contracts, and you play a game with the LunaFi rocket, and the rocket goes off on on per game, and it resets. And when the rocket goes off, the longer you leave it, the higher return you get, but the more chance it explodes, it crashes. Yeah. So you've got to cash out, you've got to jump out of that rocket ship before it explodes to win. So if I give an example, you know, you want to deposit 1 ETH, what's that, roughly $3,000 a day. You can play any hand size, you know, you can choose the hand size, I think upwards from $5. And every time you win, your stakes returned in ETH, and you have LFI that will be claimable on the TGE day, on the 15th. This starts on the 1st of April. Okay. So it will run for a couple of weeks. We're expecting, obviously, quite a lot of demand for the game. So we may find out the allocation right now of $500,000 runs out before then. So you deposit, you bet, and your winnings, ultimately the aim of the game is to win LFI, and it will show up in your wallet, but this will only be able to be withdrawn on the TGE day, because we just want to give people a chance. And this is truly a fair launch game. There is a 1% margin in this game, but all of the funds raised are added to the DEX. So we raise $500,000 on this platform, and on our launch pads, another, I think it's around $250,000. Hasn't been specifically set because the prices will be in ETH. We'll add that $750,000 with $750,000 of LFI and add that to the DEX. So we have immediate liquidity for our platform. And then as stage 2 of the game, because our sportsbook's live in May, so we've got 3 or 4 weeks to keep everyone interested, you can then deposit the LP token from QuickSwap, and then you can play the game with that LP token and win LFI at a 5%, or we don't know the exact discount at the moment, but say it's roughly 5%, and it will just be claimable in 5 days' time. So you can't just play the game and then obviously sell it immediately, but you can play it, and all of that, again, all of the LFI collected there is owned by the treasury, which is owned by the community. So from launch, we're hoping that we're going to have serious value in our treasury, with all the funds being used to provide liquidity. And then on phase 2 of this game, again, funds are just being used to provide liquidity for the DEX.
That's amazing, George, and thank you for sharing that, because I think that's so important. You know, not only is the platform taking such a small percentage compared to traditional casinos, but to have all of the funds raised going into the DEX, and then to make a super fun game that really does sound fun, to sort of gamify the IDO on top of the other launchpads.
It is gamified.
Yeah, totally, super cool. So you mentioned then that LunaFi gets released on the 15th with the TGE, and at the beginning you talked about how there's going to be 3 pools for the house in USDC, Bitcoin, and Ether. And I'm curious to know if there was anything we left out in terms of the LunaFi, and if that is a requirement or a bonus on betting or in the house and the functionality in the game.
Right, so perfect. So LunaFi, well, that staking pool will be live on the 15th. The house pools, they're not going to go live till May because they're single-sided and we don't need liquidity. We're not just going to give LunaFi tokens away because, you know, we have unlike so many projects, as I'm sure you know, they want liquidity, and it's, you know, it's not sustainable. But the LunaFi staking pool, you deposit LunaFi on the governance tab of the platform, and you will get rewards in LunaFi. In return, you get VLFi. Now, this token you can vote with. So this is the governance token of the platform. Well, LunaFi is the governance token of the platform, but you can only vote with it ultimately when you stake that token. Okay. Now, this pool receives initially rewards from the incentive contract. It also will eventually also receive bets in LunaFi if people want to bet in LunaFi. And in addition, it's not yet been set, but it's going to be around 20% of all of the commissions that are taken from the house pool in Bitcoin, ETH, and USDC. They are converted on DEX on QuickSwap into LunaFi, and these LunaFi are rewarded back into the LunaFi staking pool. So the reason why is because ultimately long term, the LunaFi staking pool stands to ensure and secure the platform. That's its main use case. We obviously we need voting rights because we need to have collabs. Think about it this way, like on a Wednesday, Thursday, there's no betting, or around Christmas time, there's no betting. We want to start integrating it so that our liquidity can be deposited in, say, Aave or Compound. And you know, that's got to be voted on. Now, what are going to be the parameters of that? How much liquidity do we want to add? So this pool, though, again, you know, someone says the house pool, in the long run, we want to bet at $1 at a million to one, right? Say we have 1,000 of those bets, so that's $1 billion we might have to pay out in the pool, and we only get $1,000. Now, in true smart contract terms, that sounds like a really bad deal for the $1 billion being held up, locked up, not earning interest anywhere else. So we have to create an algorithm that says that is such a statistically improbable event to ever happen that we can take on that bet without having to lock $1 billion. And this is an extreme scenario. And that's where the LunaFi staking pool also acts to ensure against the payouts of the house pools. Just like a bookmaker gets insurance from, you know, Lloyd's of London, this is what the LunaFi staking pool is there for. And LunaFi and LunaFi, for me, it doesn't just mean gambling. You know, everything's very similar when you come to odds, whether or not it is insurance. And there are so many other use cases once you have liquidity. But it's clear to me at this stage, the most important projects in DeFi have organic revenue and organic growth. And that will come from sports gambling and casinos because the technology is now there to take advantage of it.
Very well said, George. Thank you so much for taking the time to explain all of this. I really do appreciate it. And I think it's really enlightening for people to understand how gambling is moving towards innovation to be more fair, transparent, and more efficient. So I really do appreciate that. Now, for the viewers that want to get involved, look at the Crash IDO, learn more about LunaFi, and start betting when that becomes available, what is the best way for them to learn more and to get into the communities?
So we do have a Telegram group. We also do have Discord. These can both be found on lunafi.io. I'm most active on the Discord group. Now, we are announcing a revised competition. Unfortunately, we got kind of badly botted at our first attempt at this. But we've got a $50,000 ETH an NFT giveaway for people who sign up to the competition, which will be live as of, you know, it is live later today. And all the users have to do is, when the game comes out on the 1st of April, have a spin, and they're automatically going to be eligible to win.
Awesome. Amazing. Okay, George, I will leave the Telegram, Discord, and the LunaFi platform links all in the description box below. Thank you so much. All the best with the launch of everything moving forward, and let's follow up in the near future.
Cheers, Ashton. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.